Hi, I'm Daniel Fisher here at Sweetwater Sound, and today we're talking about the best analog synthesizers of 2023. And there's a lot of them out there to choose from, so we've got a bunch, and we wrote an article very recently with the same title. And this video is going to give you some video examples of many of the synths that we talked about in that article. And so why do you want an analog synth? Well, if you already own synth gear, let's say you have a keyboard that does strings and horns and pianos and stuff, that's a digital synthesizer because the recordings of those real instruments are digitized and put in the keyboards. Or maybe you're someone who uses plugins, and plugins are a great way to do things. You have everything in one computer and you can just take it anywhere and you can work and you can make fantastic stuff. But you might be curious as to what a real analog synthesizer might add to what you're doing. And the answer is it'll add a lot. It's because in an analog synthesizer, you're actually controlling the electrons. You're turning a knob that's controlling the voltage that's going directly to things that are electronically wiggling, and it's really happening. It's not a computer representation of something wiggling. It's like really wiggling there in front of you. And as each of those signals are going from part to part, they're the same continuous signal that had started from the beginning all the way to the end. And as you play notes on an analog synthesizer, you really can feel that you're connected to the sound that's moving across all the notes. And so we're going to talk about each of those kind. We're going to go from really low price to ones that are just studio priced. You know, very unlikely you're going to have it in your own home, but we're going to do the whole spread just to give you an idea of what's out there. So the first category we're going to do is the under $500 of analog synths. And the first one of that will be the Korg Monologue. And this is a really great small synth. It has 2 VCOs, 2-pole VCF for leads and basses. It's got an LFO, an envelope, analog drive, a 16-step sequencer, and it can run off 6 AA batteries and has 25 velocity-sensitive keys. The next is the Moog Mavis, and this is a 44 HP Eurorack module that also comes in its own standalone case, so you can just use it on the desktop. It has 2 voltage controlled oscillators, a 4-pole voltage control filter, LFO, wave folder, sample and hold, and 24 patch points that you can reconfigure all the components yourself, and it has a 13-note keypad. The next is the Create Audio West Pest. It's a 40 HP Eurorack module that also comes in its own base that you can use as a desktop. And this one really lets you explore West Coast synthesis. It has a lot more to do with wave folding and low pass gates and things like that, but it's also very powerful for its size. It has an analog VCO, wave folding, a dynamic controller, low pass gate, audio rate LFO, an envelope, a 32-step sequencer, and you can have 13 of those, and it has 18 patch points to reroute everything. And now we're moving to the under $1,000 category. And the first one of that is the Moog Minitaur. And this goes back to the Moog Taurus from the 70s, the famous pedals that were used by a lot of the prog bands. And they've recaptured that sound and put it into a small case, and the bass is just phenomenal. It's got 2 VCOs, a 4-pole filter, 2 envelopes, LFO, 3 control voltage inputs, and an audio input. The next is the Moog Mother-32, and this is a really serious analog synthesizer. It has an analog voltage control oscillator, it's got the famous 4-pole ladder voltage control filter, an envelope, and LFO, and then a 32-step sequencer, and you can have 64 of those, and there's a 13-note built-in keypad, and there's also audio input so you can process other sounds. Next is the Behringer MonoPoly. Now, this is still a monophonic synthesizer like all the other ones. It plays one note at a time, but it has 4 oscillators, and you can go into a mode that's called paraphonic. It's not really polyphony where you can just play multiple notes and each of the notes triggers independently. What you're basically doing is you have 4 oscillators that can each track their own pitch, but you're all still using the same filter and the same amplifier. So the expression of those notes are kind of all shared at once, but it can be 4 different pitches. And it has 4 VCOs, a VCF, 2 LFOs, 2 envelopes. It has sync and cross modulation, an arpeggiator, 37 velocity keys, overdrive, reverb, plus another multi-effect, and 9 patch points. The next category is under 2000, and now we're starting to talk about serious synthesizers, and these are polyphonic synthesizers in that they can play multiple notes, and each of those notes gets their own filter and their own amp and their own envelope. And the first one we're going to talk about is the Take 5 by Sequential Circuits. This 5-voice polyphonic analog synthesizer has 2 VCOs per voice, a 4-pole filter, 2 envelopes, 2 LFOs, an arpeggiator, a 64-step polyphonic sequencer, overdrive, reverb, and a multi-effect. The next is the Elektron Syntakt. Now this one is a hybrid in that it has 4 voices of analog and 8 voices of digital. And those 12 voices combine to make an amazing drum machine, groove machine. It's got 16 keypads, 1,000 sounds, 128 projects, and then 128 patterns per project. The effects include reverb, delay, filter, distortion, and it's got a gigabyte of sample storage. And now this next one is going back to a monophonic, but what a monophonic synthesizer it is. This is the Korg ARP 2600M. It has 3 VCOs, a 4-pole filter, 2 envelopes, an LFO, a true analog spring reverb, built-in stereo speakers, and over 85 patch points to make anything you could imagine. Okay, now for the over $2,000 category, and there's some amazing monsters in this category. The first is the Buchla Easle Command. Now this is 100% West Coast synthesis, and if you're completely familiar with East Coast synthesis, the standard oscillator, filter, amp, envelope kind of world, this is definitely a different way to go, and it will bring entirely new sounds to your ensemble. It has 2 analog VCOs, a VCF, an envelope, 46 patch points, a 5-note sequencer, and reverb. This next synthesizer is the Sequential TRIGON-6, and I've really enjoyed playing this. I've made 2 videos with it. It's a 6-voice synthesizer, and each of the voices gets 3 oscillators. It has 49 keys that are velocity and aftertouch sensitive. It's got a 2 or 4 pole filter. There's wave shape modulation. It's got an arpeggiator, a 64-step sequencer, 2 multi-effects, feedback, drive, and distortion. The next is the Oberheim OBX-8, and this is a Mac Daddy of a synthesizer. For those who just want that sound of the 70s and 80s Oberheim, it's just a phenomenal synthesizer. It has 61 keys that are both velocity and aftertouch sensitive, with 8 notes of polyphony, and each of those notes gets 2 VCOs per voice. There are 2 filter types, 2 envelopes, LFO, and an arpeggiator. Really a stunning machine. The next is the Moog ONE, the 16-voice version. And the Moog ONE is basically the answer to, what if I wanted my analog synthesizer to have everything I could possibly imagine in one keyboard? And the Moog ONE does that. It has 61 keys that are both velocity and aftertouch sensitive. Like I said, 16 voice polyphony, and each of those 16 voices gets 3 VCOs per voice, plus 2 independent filters, 4 LFOs, 3 envelopes, an arpeggiator, a sequencer, 6 effects plus master bus effects, and 9 CV in and out jacks. And then for the last one, we're going to go way over the top and show you the Analog Solutions Colossus Classic. It has 12 massive VCOs, 8 voltage control filters, 2 LFOs, 4 envelopes, an oscilloscope, 64-step sequencer, mechanical spring reverb, and then there's 2 CV audio matrix pin panels, as well as a 10-channel mixer and 4 mini jack panels. Well, that was a walkthrough of the best analog synthesizers of 2023, and there are so many more that we carry. Just talk to your Sweetwater sales engineer for more specifics. My name is Daniel Fisher. Thank you very much for watching. For more videos like this, click here or go to sweetwater.com for all your music, instrument, and pro audio needs.